Simon, thanks so much for your time today. We're here in Berlin, and recently you put out your results from last year from a development standpoint, and I guess the short thing to say is what a year, isn't it?
It was a great year. I mean, we were absolutely thrilled. I mean, frankly, in a year where both from a corporate standpoint and also from a global macroeconomic and geopolitical perspective, I mean, we had the most signings in the history of our company. We had the most openings in the history of our company, and I think that the thing that we were particularly proud of is that it was a great mix of signings, across all regions, all brands. We had a great number of conversions. We had a good mix of new owners and new markets. So, candidly, I don't think we could have been any more pleased with the pace of growth in 2015 than we were.
Do you think one of the real keys to it has been the fact that you've got such a global team in place, that you can deal with an investor out of China, you can deal with an investor out of Singapore or an investor out of Europe looking at any part of the world?
I think it has a lot to do with it. I think that obviously the brands are extraordinarily well received by both customers and by owners and by guests. I think that you make a very good point in that having the team that we have around the world, and many of them have been in place for a number of years, and with that kind of seasoned team, both on the development side, I think our legal team is extraordinarily strong. Our operators also are very bedded into their markets. So I think in an environment where things are constantly changing, having a seasoned team on the ground who know those local markets and can react and adapt means that you can move, much quicker and with more definitively. So I think that was a result, partly, of it.
And another huge year for one of your fund brands, W. I mean, you've got another 5 properties opening, or somewhat this year. A lot more the next 2 years after that. It's a really exciting time for this brand that just keeps going from strength to strength.
No, and it really is. I think for a brand that really started out in the U.S. and was very U.S.-centric for many years, growing a luxury brand like that or a lifestyle brand like that around the world, it takes time. I mean, I think the average time to get from when you first meet an owner to when the hotel opens can be 3, 4, 5, 6 years. So we're now seeing the results of efforts that were put in place sometimes a decade ago, sometimes 5 years ago. But you're right. I think we're going to see W just go from strength to strength to strength. And the global network that we now have with that brand is extraordinary and frankly unparalleled. And I think that if we continue to open 4, 5, 6 hotels each year over the next few years, it's going to be very hard for anyone to come anywhere near W as a global lifestyle brand.
And let's look at that. You're also the only lifestyle brand in the ski areas now as well. Aspen's obviously on the way. You've got Verbier up and running. That's a bit of a game changer there for you.
No, it is. I think that anytime you take a new brand into a new segment, and let's say that the ski market's a new segment, there are always going to be learnings. I mean, fundamentally, the W guest wants something that's a little bit different, a little bit unique. They want the design to be a little bit sort of pushing the envelope, and you just have to know how to do that and adapt that to different environments, whether it's a beach resort or a ski resort.
Obviously in Australia it's a good example of a mature market growing for you. You've got new Westons on the way, Sheratons, W's, Alofts, and 4 Points. You pretty much, you've got the spectrum in Australia going forward in a mature market. That's obviously great work from Andrew and the team.
It is. I think Andrew Taylor has done a spectacular job in Australia, and having him in place, there's a great example of someone who knows his local market with Sean Hunt, the operator in that market, and they're a tremendous team and supported by so many other individuals. There isn't a site or a hotel that our team isn't monitoring, and I think going back to W a little bit, Sydney is a market that just cries out for a W. I mean, I think when we look at our network of W's around the world, Sydney's a big gap. I'd love to see us. I think that we'll be in that market relatively soon if Andrew has his way.
Absolutely. And a general outlook from you for this year. Industry is obviously very strong. A lot of positivity in Europe, positivity in the the US, positively in Asia. That's obviously a good sign for development.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, and I always view our approach to growth as a bit like, managing your own investment portfolio. You have to have diversity. So if you've got all your eggs in one basket, then when something happens in a cyclical business, you're going to end up on your back foot. I think the good news about where we are with our teams and our brands is we're going to be able to adapt. So if the new build market starts to back up because the economy is slowing down a little bit, our teams are well placed to go into the conversion business. And, frankly, if you look at our business in Europe, for instance, I think close to half of our openings this year would have been conversions because new build activity wasn't as active as it has been in the past. And whether it's in Asia or China or Europe or wherever, our teams know that if there isn't a lot of new construction going on, we need to be able to look at our brands. And one of the things that we've got a lot better at is looking at a hotel that isn't part of one of our brands and saying, what do we need to do immediately to bring that hotel into the system and make sure that our SPG customer knows that it's one of our hotels? And what can we do over time? How do we phase in a renovation? And I think that being able to work with owners on conversions in times when new build is not there is one of the skills that we've really refined. And frankly, I think it's one of the reasons that 2015 was as strong a year as it was. And I think it portends very well for 2016.